Now we are going to discuss how we can work with variables in the routing, right? So for that, let's create one more action method, right? And let's say return type string. And now let's say we are going to create one action method by the name get customer account. And on the basis of ID, we will hit the database and will get the required details of the customer, right? Let's write return statement. Let's say hello, right? And now we are going to display the same ID, right? Now for this action method, we are going to implement routing, right? So let's create routing for this action method, and for that we need to define in the square bracket route, and we need to define. Now let's say after domain name we want to pass some hard coded value, right? Let's say for this we want to pass customer, right? Then after this hard coded value we want to have some dynamic value, right? We want to pass some dynamic parameter, so let's say ID, right? So that's all. Now let's save the changes and run the application. Our application is loading, so let's wait. Now in this we need to pass after domain name hard coded value is, let's say, customer we have defined, right? And after this customer we want to pass some dynamic value, let's say this time 42, right? And press enter, you can see the output hello ID equal to 42, right? Let me put a breakpoint over here to make it more clear, right? Now you can see on the screen I'm going to hit again in this URL, right? And now my control is coming in this action method, and in the ID we are getting 42, right? And the same we are displaying right now. But in a real scenario we will make a database call from this action method and will fetch all the details. So let's continue, and we can see the output, right? So this is how we can deal with the variables in the routing. Now let's say, let me stop the application. Now let's say we want to deal with multiple variables in the routing, right? So for that let's create one more action method, right? Now we will see how we can deal with multiple variables. Now this time let's change the action method name. Let's say get customer details. Now on the basis of ID parameter and one more parameter we will take, let's say account number, right? So on the basis of ID and account number we are going to fetch details of customer, right? Now let me change the message also here. So get customer details, hello customer details, right? And after ID we are going to display account number, right? So let's save the changes. And now for this action method get customer details we need to pass multiple variables, right? So let's say after domain name we want to have the same customer hard-coded value, and after this dynamic value we want to have once more hard-coded value. Let's say we would like to have account hard-coded value, right? Now after account we want to pass some hard-coded we want to pass some dynamic parameter, right? So let's say account number, so we will pass the this dynamic parameter over here. So now for this action method get customer details we can define this routing in the URL, right? So let's see if that changes and run the application. Let's see the result. right? So let me scroll it a little more. Now for this, for calling this customer detail action method, we need to pass in the URL after this domain name. You can see after this domain name, we need to pass hardcoded value customer. Then after that, some dynamic parameter, let's say 21, and after that we need to pass again hard-coded value account, right? You can see over here in this, for calling this action method get customer details, we need to pass this pattern. We need to pass this pattern in the URL, right? So after account, we need to pass some dynamic parameter, let's say, right? Now pressing enter, now you can see the output, hello customer details ID equal to 21 and account number this, right? Let me put a breakpoint over here, right? And again I'm hitting, you can see our control is coming here, and in the ID we are passing 21 and in the account number this one, right? So on the basis of this ID and account number, we will hit the database, right? And we will make a database call and will fetch all the details on the basis of this parameter, right? But as of now, to make you understand, I'm just displaying the same output, right? You can see over here, right? So let me stop the application and let me give a space over here, right? Now let's run once more this application, and for calling this action method get customer detail, we need to pass this pattern, this routing pattern in the URL, right? So let's call this. So for calling this customer, then we can pass any hard-coded value, and then after this we need to pass once more. I want to tell you that after domain name we can pass hard-coded value customer, then we need to pass some dynamic value, right, as per what we have defined in the routing, right? And then after this we need to pass some hard-coded value again account, then we can pass any dynamic parameter, right? So press enter, you can see now this time ID we are passing 33 and now account number this time this one, and now on the basis of this ID and account number we can fetch the required details from the database and we can display to the user. So you can see hello customer details ID equal to this and account number this. So this is how we can deal with the multiple variables in the routing. So whatever pattern we are going to define in this route, right? So the same pattern we can define in the URL for calling particular action method, right? So this is how we can deal with the multiple variables in the routing.